A general sat by an Indian river and contemplated his soldiers' betrayal. Their adoration had turned to sullen silence, angry shouts, mutiny. How could this happen? They'd loved him all his life, followed him because of that love, and now they just wanted to go home. The year was 327 BC. The general was Alexander, king of Macedon, known to posterity as Alexander the Great, and the limitations of authoritarian and charismatic leadership had just been demonstrated on a truly epic scale. There's still a myth that leaders are born and not made. It's certainly true that leadership comes more easily to some people than others. If you're an Alexander, leadership's probably been part of your identity for as long as you can remember. But leadership isn't just about you. It can't be. It has to be about your followers too, because by definition, without followers, you can't be a leader. Psychology's also looked mainly at the leader themselves, at personality traits and behaviours. My field's identity, so I'm more interested in how a leadership identity affects the leader and their followers. If you can be confident and motivated in your leadership persona, and if you can make those around you confident and motivated, you can be a good leader, regardless of whether or not you were born with so-called leadership traits. 20 years of actual corporate experience proves to me beyond a doubt that in building up the people around you, you build up your own leadership identity. And recently, social psychology has provided some academic bones to this argument with the work of Professors Riker, Haslam and Plateau, providing that identity leadership can reach the parts that other methods cannot reach. Being a really excellent leader requires three things: a group identity that people can share, a leadership identity that they can follow, and being able to build people up to positively develop their own identities. Seeing yourself as a leader isn't enough. I still see examples of the old authoritarian leader who needs to micromanage and can't take any input. I think most of us realise by now that that doesn't make for a comfortable environment. Charismatic leaderships work well for certain entrepreneurs, and yet you can only carry people on charisma if they share your vision. Transformational leadership has two problems. Firstly, people come in and implement change for change's sake. There's a lot of truth in the old adage, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Change makes people uneasy, it can be costly, and it doesn't always deliver anything better than was there in the first place. And it's often implemented too quickly and too sweepingly, leading to a disconnect between people and process. I think identity is the key to transformation. If you want to successfully lead a company, a department, or a team, you have to be seen as a member of it, not above or apart. The worst organisational breakdowns happen where there's a big disconnect between leadership and other staff. Back in the 70s, Tajfel and Turner were already showing with their social identity theory that we humans like to categorise people into groups and label them in-group or out-group. Just seeing someone as out-group can be enough to cause mistrust and hostility. If you want people to follow you, they have to see you as in-group. What's more, they have to see you as an exemplar of in-group, as demonstrating to a high degree the values and the abilities of the group that you're representing. And finally, they have to see you as acting for the benefit of the in-group, not for your own benefit or the benefit of an out-group. Alexander found this out when his troops mutinied. The man they'd followed was the king of Macedon, a soldier, a warrior, who'd welcomed plain speaking from his men. Alexander, ruler of the Persian Empire, surrounded by respectful acolytes and expecting the same subservience from them, wasn't the leader they knew. He'd become out-group. He was still a leader, but he wasn't their leader anymore. Modern business has many parallels. The reason that pay gap between top and bottom earners in a company has such an effect on productivity is that it accentuates the in-group, out-group divide. The reason that teams become disconnected from their managers is that they're seen as a mouthpiece of the management rather than a member of the team with shared goals and values. The reason that staff become disengaged is they don't understand their own part in the vision and mission of the company, which should be getting communicated down through the organisation. This brings us to the second part of identity leadership, creating a shared group identity. I've said that a leader needs to be an exemplar of the in-group, but that doesn't mean that you have to take the group identity as you find it. Part of the job of the leader is creating the group identity with its shared goals and values. A really good leader will create the group identity, build the vision, and make their people a part of it. Alexander built a vision around the greatness of Macedon. Traditionally, the city-states of ancient Greece had seen Macedonians as uncivilized barbarians. Alexander built a vision of Macedon as respected and powerful and successful. But the group identity fell apart when the beliefs and values that made up the group changed, because he hadn't sold the new vision or taken his people with him into the new group identity. I see this happen when international companies take over local ones, when big corporates buy out smaller companies, when hotshot executives come into traditional industries, or young leaders into an old-fashioned company. What they have to offer could be hugely positive, but the existing staff resist it because they haven't been sold the vision or brought into the new group identity. So that brings us on to the final point, empowerment and motivation. Some managers still tell me that money's people's primary motivator. That is a fallacy. Money's just what Hertzberg called a hygiene factor, a source of dissatisfaction when there's not enough of it, but a very poor motivator. What motivates people is feeling good about themselves, feeling successful, feeling as if their skills are being used and they're appreciated. So your job as a leader is to make all of those things happen. How we see ourselves is called a self-representation, and it's made up of multiple self aspects, which are all the different roles that we have in life. One of those self aspects will be self at work, and it will have multiple beliefs associated with it, some positive, some negative, and all made up from experiences that we've had. That doesn't mean that they're all accurate. So you may have an employee that thinks they're useless at something because they once failed at it, who thinks you don't like them because they're really bad at taking criticism, or who thinks they're absolutely fabulous at something that they really have no skill at all. And your job as a leader is twofold, because they'll have emotions associated with all of these beliefs, and they'll act accordingly. Firstly, you need to understand what those beliefs are, and then you need to work with them and provide evidence for and against, to build them up in beliefs that are realistic, but also that are supportive and helpful to them. And then when they understand and you understand where they actually are now, you need to work with them to help them to develop. So if they need more responsibility and a chance to shine, then give it to them. If they lack confidence, then support them and guide them and let their confidence build up. And acknowledge their successes reinforce everything positive that you can. Because being a leader isn't about the leader as such, it's about being a leader as a leader of followers. And your success as a leader shines out in them and the results that they get for your company rather than in you. Alexander was born a leader, and he instinctively knew how to do all of these things. How to make a leadership identity people could follow, a group identity they could share, and how to inspire and motivate people. And yet even he failed in the end, because he thought leadership was all about him. And he didn't understand it's a group effort, a joint enterprise. In an increasingly automated world, successful leaders will be those who understand that people aren't human resources. People are your partners in the success of your business, and they're the ones that will make your leadership happen. Thank you.